House, I will state the question in the form that the amendment be agreed to. I call the member for Higgins.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Many of us in the House are working parents. We know the challenges that face us when we need to return to work and the juggle of young family and a career. Whether those challenges are financial or emotional, we know it can be difficult on the family. Therefore, it's a great privilege to be in this House to debate a bill that will provide much-needed assistance and choice to families right across Australia. I'm proud for all of us here in the chamber because we all care about a productive and efficient economy, but also families that are happy and supportive for their children. In this year's budget, the Morrison government committed to making childcare more affordable and by doing so provide more choices for families. I'm pleased for the women of Australia and for my daughters and those that follow behind us. And that's what this bill is basically doing. Research demonstrates that development during early childcare sets either a sturdy or fragile state for what follows. The Morrison government understands this and will continue to provide and expand subsidy for quality childcare to the benefits of parents now and children in generations to come. Madam Deputy Speaker, as a previous paediatrician, I understand the value of childcare and quality childcare for children for their best start to life. Madam Deputy Speaker, the issue of gender workforce participation rate is also of pivotal concern to the Morrison government. Female workforce participation is currently 67.6%, and the Morrison government's policies have enabled this rate to be the highest in the last 10 years. But it still lags behind men's participation. We need to keep working to narrow the female workforce participation gap. We know that the 3 Ps of participation, population and productivity are the keys to a strong economy. And this is important now more than ever in our post-COVID era. Madam Deputy Speaker, we know that an increase in childcare costs is correlated with reduced female employment. In a time where women have been hit so disproportionately hard by the COVID pandemic, the Morrison government recognises the need for more support and will deliver that with this bill. These changes will see 250,000 families pay less out-of-pocket costs due to these changes. If not for the removal of the current income cap, there would continue to be a disincentive for a second earner to undertake work by not only paying high childcare fees but receiving lesser childcare subsidies, but also less family tax incentive and paying more income tax. The Morrison government wants to encourage workforce participation, particularly among women that would otherwise be held back from the workforce without this bill. Women who want to make sure that they make an impact in the workforce well beyond the time that they spend with their children, to be able to balance that and know that the government has their back. Madam Deputy Speaker, a 2008 survey saw 127,000 women across Australia cite caring for children as their reason for not looking for work or seeking more hours. This bill provides support for those very people by removing the cap that currently sees parents limited in their access to affordable early learning and care. The majority of additional subsidy will go into the pockets of low and middle income earners, with Australia's lowest income earners those that need it most, privy to the highest rate of subsidy. Madam Deputy Speaker, our government policies are already working. This bill before us will again help increase female participation. Results show in June this year that participation is up and underemployment is down. 115,000 new jobs were created, of which 85% were full-time jobs. Most importantly, of those 115,000 new jobs, around 60% went to women. These figures show that there were more women in work than ever before, and the numbers should give Australians confidence that the Morrison government's economic plan is working. Madam Deputy Speaker, the Morrison government's investment into childcare will target low and middle income earners, putting money back in families' pockets. The bill before us targets additional support to all eligible Australian families with more than one child aged under 6 in childcare. This means around 250,000 families will benefit. That translates to an average of $2,260 per year. What a huge difference that will make to a young Australian family. Everyone knows when you've got young children, the costs are enormous, not just for childcare, but for all sorts of things. And be able to have that little bit of comfort that childcare costs will be supported will make such a difference to families. But importantly, with these amendments, it removes the disincentives to work while maintaining the principles of the system. The amendments before us today target families who need it most. Childcare for younger children is more costly, and because of this, it can limit choices for parents when considering whether to take on that extra time in the workplace. This is particularly so when families have more than one child aged under 6. Any parent knows what a busy time it is for a young family. These families are also more likely to be working less, with lower incomes and higher childcare costs compared to families with older children. And that's why we intend on making positive changes for Australian families through these amendments. These amendments are slated to come into effect in July 2022. And by July 2022, we will increase the childcare subsidy available to families with more than one child. And the level of subsidy will increase by 30 percentage points to a maximum subsidy of 95% of fees paid for their second and subsequent child. Around 50% of families who benefit from the measure will receive the maximum 95% subsidy for their second and subsequent child. This will make a significant difference. Around 95% of families who benefit from the measure will receive a subsidy of at least 80% for their second and subsequent child. Importantly, we will remove the $10,560 annual cap on the childcare subsidy for families earning over $189,000, and that will benefit a further 18,000 families. This will ensure families with multiple children don't exhaust their childcare subsidy cap sooner in the year for younger children. These changes will put more money in the hands of Australian families, and particularly those who are already dealing with childcare costs. This is a core principle of our childcare subsidy. The activity test, importantly, Madam Deputy Speaker, does remain in place to ensure families must be undertaking activity. And that's because we want to encourage people to use the childcare subsidy to help them get into work, to help them undertake training or help them to study so that they can be eligible for the workforce going forward. These measures reduce workforce disincentives for families and encourage parents, especially second income earners who are more often women, to go back to work or work more if they choose to, or to get more training so that they can be ready for the workforce. Madam Deputy Speaker, 60% of the additional investment goes to families earning under $180,000. The maximum childcare subsidy rate will increase to 95% for these families, and the total subsidy will be important for those who have 2 children in care. Those who earn the least will receive the most. Madam Deputy Speaker, as I said before, we plan to remove the annual cap, and this is a core component because this actually creates a disincentive for increased workforce participation. Once a family hits the annual cap, they're required to pay 100% of childcare fees in the past. Now, this results in large effective marginal tax rates and the possibility of significant debts, and this shouldn't be underestimated, because if they've got this incorrect, this can actually result in large debts, even if it's by a small amount. Not removing the annual cap will maintain and, in some cases, increase workforce disincentives where a family has a combined income of over $189,000. These steps will negate any extra previously would have negated any extra benefit generated by the increased subsidy. Madam Deputy Speaker, I have been asked about why we have to wait for the measure to be implemented with this announcement. And the reason for this is these measures require several things to be taken into account. It requires development of business requirements to inform the underpinning IT system changes. It requires a complex technical build by Services Australia, and it requires complementary changes for the software providers and their systems to support the childcare sector. The implementation lead time takes into consideration time to communicate changes with the childcare sector, as well as for software providers to build and test their changes, to ensure a smooth transition to the new system. This means that these changes will be ready to be implemented by July 2022. Madam Deputy Speaker, the bill before us today clearly shows the Morrison government is committed to delivering more affordable childcare and choice for Australian families. This bill is yet another example that the Morrison government has the back of all families, that we understand how important getting women into the workforce, but also, more importantly, maintaining them in the workforce is. I know, seeing so many of my friends and colleagues moving in and out of the workforce, how having that continuity and support for early childcare and ensuring that it is of good quality and of great accessibility is important to all women in Australia. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
The question is that the amendment be disagreed